My daughter-in-law suddenly became very thoughtful. That Sunday morning, she showed up with homemade chicken soup. "Eat up, Dad. I made this for you." Sounded sweet, right? But I was fasting for blood work. So, I brought the soup to the hospital. Gave it to Oliver, my son, working an exhausted night shift. Just 1 hour later, screams tore through the ward. I ran to see what happened, and the scene before my eyes made me collapse on the spot. I'm grateful you're here. Before I take you back to that Sunday morning, drop a comment. Where are you watching from and what time is it there right now? It was a quiet Sunday morning in October, the kind that makes you grateful to be alive. I sat at my kitchen table with my reading glasses on, reviewing old project files, a habit left over from my engineering days. The house was painfully quiet. It had been that way since Anne died 3 years ago. Photos on the mantel watched me as they always did. Anne smiling at our 40th anniversary. Oliver beaming at his medical school graduation. When the doorbell rang at 7:30, I wasn't expecting anyone. Natalie stood on my porch holding an enormous stock pot with both hands. My daughter-in-law and I shared a polite, distant relationship, so seeing her that early caught me off guard. "Good morning, Dad," she said, smiling brighter than usual. "I hope I'm not too early." "Of course not," I said, holding the door open. "Is everything all right? Everything's fine?" She stepped into the kitchen and set the pot on the counter. "I made something special for you. Homemade chicken noodle soup." The aroma filled the room, rich with roasted chicken, herbs and slow-simmered vegetables. It smelled like comfort, like care. "Natalie, listen," I said, genuinely moved. "You didn't have to do all this. No trouble at all." Pride shone in her eyes. "I've been up since 5, making it from scratch. You've looked tired lately, and I thought you needed real homemade food." Standing there, I felt a surge of affection. Maybe I'd misjudged her. "That's incredibly thoughtful," I said, reaching for a bowl. Then reality struck. My doctor's appointment, the blood work. "Oh, hell," I muttered. "I'm so sorry. I have a fasting blood panel at 9. I can't eat anything until after." Her smile faltered for a brief second. Something unreadable crossed her face before it returned. "Oh," she said softly. "I didn't know. I feel terrible," I said, staring at the pot. "You went to so much effort." We stood in awkward silence. Finally, she glanced at her watch. "I should go. I have errands to run," she said quickly. "You can eat it later. Just reheat it." "Thank you," I said, walking her to the door. "And let me know you're all right." "Tell me how the blood work goes," she replied, her tone oddly final. "I will, and Natalie, thank you. This means a lot." She paused on the porch, her expression unreadable, then smiled. "You're welcome, Dad." After she left, I stared at the soup. Such a waste to throw it out. Anne would have scolded me for that. That's when I thought of Oliver. He was at County General pulling a double shift. He texted me the night before, complaining about missing meals, and that was exactly where my appointment was. The solution felt obvious. I grabbed Anne's old stainless steel thermos, the one that kept food hot for hours, and filled it carefully with soup, making sure to include plenty of chicken and vegetables. Oliver would be grateful. Natalie's work wouldn't be wasted. I sealed the lid, grabbed my keys, and stepped into the cool morning air. The thermos rested warm against my chest as I set it on the passenger seat of my Buick. 20 minutes to the hospital. I'd drop off the soup, maybe see my son, then go to my appointment. If I had known what that container truly held, I would have poured it down the drain and called the police. But ignorance offers no protection. I drove toward County General Hospital, toward my son, toward the moment that would destroy everything. I believed about family trust and love. I thought I was being a good father. Instead, I was delivering death in a container meant for care. The drive to County General Hospital took 15 minutes. The thermos sat warm on the passenger seat, its metal surface catching the morning light. I kept glancing at it, as if proximity alone could preserve the care Natalie had poured into that soup. I passed Riverside Pharmacy on Maple Street. The place had been robbed 3 weeks ago. Controlled substances stolen, including potassium chloride vials. I'd read about it in the paper, thought nothing of it. Why would I? County General loomed ahead, all glass and steel. It had been my second home during Anne's final year. I knew which elevator moved fastest, which vending machine dispensed dissent coffee, which corner offered privacy for crying. 3 years later, I still knew every corridor by heart. The doctor's break room was tucked behind the main nursing station. I found Oliver there, asleep on the couch. My son's 6 feet of exhaustion was folded into that shabby furniture like he'd never quite grown up. His scrubs were rumpled dark circles, shadowing his eyes. 16 hours into his double shift, with 4 more to go. This was Anne's boy. Our boy, the one who'd returned to work the day after her funeral. Because people need doctors, Dad, even when doctors need to grieve. Oliver, I said softly, his eyes snapped open. That physician's instinct never fully at rest. Dad, your appointment's not until 9:15. I know. I held up the thermos, but I thought you might be hungry. He rubbed his face. I'm fine. Grabbed something around 3 minutes 0 seconds and 6 milliseconds hours ago. I unscrewed the lid. The smell of chicken noodle soup filled the room. Homemade, rich, everything a hospital cafeteria could never be. Natalie made this for me, but I can't eat it. Blood work orders. His expression softened. That was sweet of her. It'll go to waste otherwise. I poured soup into the thermos cup, steam curling upward. Besides, your mother always said a man can't think straight on an empty stomach. He smiled a real smile, the first I'd seen in weeks. Mum said that before every exam I ever took, and you never failed one, I handed him the cup. Doctor's orders, mine, this time. He took it, and for a moment we were just father and son sharing a meal in the middle of chaos. He sipped once, then again. God, this is good. Natalie really outdid herself. Pride flickered through me. Pride in my daughter-in-law's thoughtfulness in this family we'd built, even after losing Anne. She's a good woman. She is. Oliver drained half the cup in 3 swallows. You taught me to pick a good one. I refilled his cup. He didn't protest, just ate with the focus of a man too tired to remember hunger until food appeared. When he finished, he stood and pulled me into a brief hug. Thanks, Dad. I needed that. Any time I walked back toward the elevator with the empty thermos, behind me, his voice called out, "Love you, Dad." I turned, smiling. "Love you, too, son." The elevator doors closed between us. Those were the last ordinary words we ever exchanged. I just opened a magazine in the blood work waiting room when the intercom crackled to life. Code blue. Doctor's break room. Code blue. The magazine slipped from my hands. Code blue never happened in the doctor's break room. That was where doctors rested, not where they became patients. My engineer's mind caught on that detail like a nail-snagging fabric. Something fundamental had broken in the order of things. I was running before conscious thought caught up down the corridor past startled nurses, my dress shoes slapping linoleum. The waiting room receptionist called after me, but her voice dissolved into the roar of blood in my ears. I'd left Oliver 10 minutes ago? 10 minutes? Healthy, smiling, telling me he loved me? The security guard blocked the break room entrance. "Sir, you can't. That's my son." I shoved past him, but hands grabbed my shoulders. Through the doorway, I caught glimpses between rushing bodies, the crash cart, its paddles charged and ready. Oliver on the floor, his back arched at an impossible angle. Dr. Rebecca Turner, who recognized her from Anne's treatments, was straddling Oliver's chest, hands locked, arms pumping. "Come on, Oliver. Come on, Cliff," someone shouted. Bodhi stepped back, the defibrillator discharged with a sound like a muffled gunshot. Oliver's body jerked, then went still. The EKG monitor screamed its jagged rhythm, ventricular fibrillation. I'd learned that term during Anne's final days. The heart wasn't beating, it was shuddering again, charging to 200, calcium gluconate. Now, Dr. Turner barked at Nurse Bethany, his potassium's through the roof. "Get me insulin and D50. Potassium," the word lodged in my brain, but made no sense. Oliver was young, healthy. Potassium levels didn't just spike without reason. Cliff, another shock. Another horrible jerk of my son's body. The monitor flatlined. The sound, that single, endless tone, cut through me like a blade. My knees buckled. The security guard caught my elbow, but I barely felt it. I was watching my boy die in the same building where his mother had died 3 years ago, in a room that should have been safe. "Don't you quit on me, Oliver," Dr. Turner said, voice steady despite the sweat beating her forehead. She resumed compressions. Bethany pushed the calcium. "Brian, what's his latest K level?" 9.8. A male voice called from somewhere I couldn't see. "Jesus Christ," someone muttered. Then a blip on the monitor. Weak, irregular, but there, a heartbeat. "We got him back," Dr. Turner said. Get him to ICU stat. I want continuous cardiac monitoring. The rest dissolved into medical jargon as they wheeled. Oliver passed me on a gurney. His face was grey, an oxygen mask, fogging with each shallow breath. I tried to follow, but Dr. Turner stepped into my path. Her scrub splotted with something I didn't want to identify. "He's alive," she said. "But, Mr. Hartley," she paused, choosing words carefully. "Someone poisoned your son. His potassium level was 9.8. Normal is 3.525. That doesn't happen by accident." I stared at her, the words refusing to connect into meaning. She gestured behind me. "That thermos, what was in it?" I turned. The thermos sat on the breakroom table, its lid, unscrewed, a spoon beside it, the gift I'd brought, the thoughtfulness I'd delivered, the near-fatal mistake I'd made, and somewhere, someone had filled it with death. The next hour blurred into a nightmare of questions I couldn't answer. Detective Karen Mitchell arrived while Oliver was being transferred to the ICU. She was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, with sharp eyes that catalogued everything. She introduced herself with a kind of calm efficiency that told me she'd delivered bad news before. Behind her, 2 uniformed officers were already cordoning off the doctor's break room with yellow tape. "Mr. Hartley," she gestured toward a private waiting room. "I need to ask you some questions." Through the small window, I could see them bagging the thermos. My thermos, Anne's thermos, the one that had carried lunches and love notes and now, apparently poison. "Your son is stable," Mitchell said, though stable felt like a cruel word for a man whose heart had stopped. "But Dr. Turner tells me his potassium levels were consistent with intentional poisoning. Potassium chloride most likely. So I need you to walk me through this morning." Every day I told her Natalie's visit, the soup, my doctor's appointment, my decision to bring it to Oliver, and you didn't eat any yourself. Her pen hovered over her notepad. "No, I was fasting. Blood work, orders. Lucky." The word hung between us, heavy with imprecation. "It wasn't luck," I said slowly. The realization was spreading through me like ice water. It was supposed to be for me. Mitchell's expression didn't change, but something shifted in her eyes. Who else had access to that soup? Natalie made it at our house. Well, my house. Oliver and Natalie live across town. Anyone else present during preparation? I shook my head. Just her, as far as I know. Carmen, our housekeeper, wasn't scheduled today. And after your daughter-in-law left, the soup remained in your possession until you brought it here. Yes, she wrote something down. "Mr. Hartley, do you have any reason to believe someone would want to harm you or your son?" Before I could answer, the waiting room door opened. Natalie burst in, her face pale, her carefully styled hair disheveled. "Julian, oh my God, I just got Oliver's text. He said there was an emergency." She saw Mitchell, the uniform behind her, and froze. "What's going on? Where's Oliver?" "Mrs. Hartley." Mitchell stood. "I'm Detective Mitchell. Your husband is in the ICU. He suffered cardiac arrest this morning." Natalie's hand flew to her mouth. "What? But he was fine. He's young, he's healthy." "He was poised," Mitchell said, watching her carefully. "Potassium chloride in the soup he made this morning." The color drained from Natalie's face completely. "The soup, I made that with love. I was trying to do something nice for Julian." Her eyes found mine wide and horrified. "You didn't eat it, did you, oh God? And you gave it to Oliver?" There was something in her voice. Relief, fear. I couldn't tell. "Mrs. Hartley, are you familiar with potassium chloride?" What? "No, I mean, I worked in pharmaceutical sales years ago." But Natalie wrapped her arms around herself. "Are you saying someone put poison in my soup? Who would do that?" "That's what I'm trying to determine." Mitchell's gaze was steady. "Can you account for your whereabouts after you left Mr. Hartley's house this morning?" "I went home. I was alone. I was going to go shopping. But then Oliver texted." Natalie's voice cracked. "Can I see him, please?" "Not yet. The ICU is restricted while we investigate." Mitchell turned back to me. "Mr. Hartley, I'll need you to come to the station. We need a formal statement. Am I a suspect?" "Right now, everyone's a suspect, including you." I looked at Natalie. She was staring at the floor, her hands trembling. When she finally met my eyes, something flickered across her face, and then she looked away. That's when the doubt crept in. There was something very wrong with my daughter-in-law. By the time I returned home, the autumn sun had set. The house felt different, tainted. Carmen was waiting in the kitchen, her hands clasped tight. She'd been with our family for 15 years, had held Anne's hand during chemo, had witnessed our worst days. Mr. Julian. Her voice was strained. The police came this afternoon. They searched everywhere. I know, Detective Mitchell called. Carmen hesitated. When they searched the basement, they moved boxes around. I went down to organize and I found something. Something you need to see. The basement had been Daniel's territory. After he died 13 years ago, I'd boxed up his things. He couldn't bear to throw them away. Couldn't bear to look at them. They'd sat untouched ever since. Carmen pulled the chain on the single bulb. Yellow light spilled across stacked boxes and old furniture. She pointed to a cardboard box labeled in Daniel's handwriting. Daniel Hospital Records. The bottom tore when I picked it up. She said quietly. Papers fell out. Inside were files, documents from County General, employment records, performance reviews, and underneath a manila folder marked with a date from 15 years ago, March 17th. I opened it. 2 surgical reports. Same patient, Zori Carlson, 54. Same date, same procedure, but not the same content. The first report covered in red strike, through red in Daniel's handwriting. Surgical error. Attending physician failed to properly liate hepatic artery. Patient expired due to uncontrolled hemorrhaging. The tenting physician, Dr. Daniel Hartley. The second report, typed official, stamped, told a different story. Medication error. Incorrect dosage administered by treating nurse. Patient expired due to uncontrolled hemorrhaging. Treating RN Calliope Spencer. I stared at the name. Carmen leaned over my shoulder. Who is she? My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and searched the name. The first result was an obituary from 15 years ago. Calliope Spencer, 39. Loving mother and dedicated nurse, passed away March 28th. She is survived by her daughter, Natalie Spencer. The phone slipped from my hands. Natalie is Calliope's daughter, I whispered. She's the daughter of the woman my brother destroyed. The pieces fell into place with horrible clarity. Daniel had made a fatal mistake. Instead of owning it, he'd falsified records and blamed a nurse, and I had believed him. And 20 years later, her daughter had married into our family. Carmen's voice was barely audible. Do you think she knew when she married Oliver? I stared at the documents, at my brother's handwriting, at the lies that had killed an innocent woman. She knew, I said softly, and now I understand why she came into our lives. The soup hadn't been random. Natalie had planned this. But the most horrifying thing about it, my voice broke. I still wasn't ready to face it. Not yet. The soup had been meant for me, the man who'd helped destroy her mother. But Oliver had eaten it instead. I couldn't sleep. Alone in the dark, living room, the documents spread before me. Memories from 15 years ago came flooding back. March 2010. Daniel had called me from the hospital, his voice tight. Julian, I need you. A patient died during surgery. I'd driven straight there, found him, in his office, pale and shaken. What happened? The nurse made a mistake. He'd said, Calliope Spencer, wrong dosage of anticoagulant. I tried to save the patient, but his voice cracked. They're investigating. Julian, I need you to testify. You know how careful I am. And I had believed him. My baby brother, the brilliant surgeon, had testified at the hospital tribunal. Told them Daniel was meticulous, precise, incapable of negligence. My words carried weight. I'd worked with County General on construction projects, new board members. Then I'd made the phone call. Calliope Spencer, 39, single mother. Mr. Hartley, I didn't make a mistake. Please, believe me. The evidence says otherwise. If you admit the error, they'll show leniency. But if you fight this, it'll destroy you. Think of your daughter. I'm thinking of her. Her voice broke. I'm thinking how she grew up knowing her mother was blamed for killing someone. But Mr. Hartley, I didn't do it. Please believe me. I hadn't believed her. Miss Spencer, the best thing you can do is take responsibility. Silence. Then quietly, I see. 2 days later, she was dead. I'd attended her memorial. Saw a young woman in the front row. Natalie, I hadn't approached her. What could I have said? At the time, I'd thought guilt had overwhelmed Calliope, that the weight of her mistake had been too much. Now staring at Daniel's falsified reports, I understood. She'd been innocent. And my phone call, my pressure, my insistence she confessed to something she hadn't done, had pushed her over the edge. I hadn't killed her with poison. I'd killed her with words. The rain intensified outside, drumming against windows. In the darkness, I could almost hear her voice. Please believe me. But I hadn't. And a woman had died, and her daughter had spent 15 years planning revenge. My phone rang. Detective Mitchell. Mr. Hartley, we found evidence. The KCL was stolen from Riverside Pharmacy 3 weeks ago. Security footage shows someone using an old employee access card registered to your daughter. I close my eyes. I need to see her. We can arrange that tomorrow morning. And Oliver? Is he awake? Not yet, but Dr. Turner says he's stable. You can visit ICU tonight, if you want. I need to see my son first. Undisturbed, Mr. Hartley Mitchell. Paused. We'll have officers present when you meet with Natalie for your safety. She's not going to hurt me, detective. She already tried. I hung up and stared at the documents. Kalia Spencer's name in black and white. The lie that had killed her. Tomorrow I would face her daughter. But first, I needed to see the son who'd almost died in my place. Because before I confronted the woman who wanted me dead, I needed to see the boy who'd nearly died instead. I'd spent the night in the ICU waiting room. When dawn light cut through the hospital windows, a nurse touched my shoulder. He's awake. Oliver looked small in that hospital bed, surrounded by machines and 4 lines. His skin was still pale, dark circles carved beneath his eyes, but those eyes were open, alert, searching my face. Dad. His voice was hoarse. What happened? Dr. Turner stepped forward, her expression professional but kind. You suffered severe hyperkalemia, critically high potassium levels. It caused cardiac arrest. He'd had to resuscitate you. Oliver's gaze shifted to the monitor beside him, reading the numbers with a physician's trained eye. Hyperkalemia that severe doesn't just happen. Not in a healthy 38-year-old, no, Turner said quietly. It doesn't. His eyes found mine. The soup. I nodded, unable to speak. Ooh. The question came out raw. Who would? Natalie. The name felt like glass in my throat. Your wife. The color drained from his face. That's not possible. Natalie wouldn't. Her real name is Natalie Spencer. I moved. Cliff took his hand. Her mother was Collier Spencer, a nurse who worked here 15 years ago. I watched understanding dawn slowly, terribly. Oliver had heard the story. Everyone at County General knew about the Colson case. The nurse who'd supposedly made a fatal error. Uncle Daniel's patient? He whispered. Daniel Lead. He made the surgical error, then falsified records to blame Coley. She was innocent and my voice broke. I testified against her. So he stopped, his face crumbling. She planned this, all of it, marrying me, living with me for 4 years, making me think. He couldn't finish. The soup was meant for me. I said you weren't supposed to eat it. I gave it to you because I couldn't eat, because I had that damn blood work appointment. You saved my life. His hand tightened on mine. I almost killed you. The tears came then, hot and unstoppable. Oliver, I'm so sorry. Everything that's happened. Callie and Natalie, you're lying here? It's all because I trusted the wrong person 15 years ago. We sat in silence, the machines beeping their steady rhythm. Finally, Oliver spoke. Did she ever love me? Or was I just a tool? The question gutted me. This was my son, the boy who'd believed in fairy tales, who danced with Anne in the kitchen, who proposed to Natalie on a beach at sunset, because he'd thought she was his forever. I'm meeting with her in 2 hours, I said. The police arranged it. I'll ask Dad. His voice was barely audible. Ask her if any of it was real. I need to know. I promised him I would, but I already knew the answer would shatter his heart. Still, he deserved the truth, no matter how much it hurt. Rain began to fall as I drove to the police station. Appropriate, I thought. Even the sky was grieving. I kept thinking about the first time Natalie came to a family dinner 4 years ago. She'd brought homemade apple pie, had laughed at my engineering jokes, had held Oliver's hand like he was precious. Anne had still been alive, then weak, but fighting. She'd squeezed my arm afterward and whispered, "She's perfect for him." Had it all been an act? Every smile, every holiday, every "I love you" to my son. I was about to meet a stranger, wearing my daughter-in-law's face. Detective Mitchell was waiting inside along with Leonard Cooper, my attorney for 20 years. The man who'd handled Anne's estate. Mr. Hartley Mitchell gestured to a conference room. Before we proceed, I need to brief you on what we found. She spread photos across the table. Security footage from Riverside Pharmacy time-stamped 3 weeks ago. A figure in a hoodie using an employee access card at the rear entrance. Card was registered to Natalie Spencer from when she worked there 6 years ago. It should have been deactivated, but Mitchell shrugged. Security gaps. We also executed a warrant on her laptop, found search history from 2 months ago. KCl lethal, dosage. Can hypokalemia be detected in autopsy? My stomach turned. There's more, Mitchell continued. Text messages to a burner phone, deleted, but recovered, discussing timing. Discussing your routine. She'd been planning this for weeks, possibly longer. Leonard leaned forward. Julian, with this evidence, the DA is considering attempted murder charges. Michelle Rogers is pushing for 20 years minimum. Good, I said quietly. Leonard blinked. Good, Julian. She tried to kill you. She tried to kill me because I helped kill her mother. I pulled Daniel's files from my briefcase, set them on the table. Detective, does Natalie know I found these? Mitchell examined the documents, the falsified surgical reports, Daniel's original confession. Her expression hardened. No, we haven't mentioned them. These prove Daniel led. These prove Kalia Spencer was innocent. And these prove I helped destroy an innocent woman's life. Leonard's face went pale. Julian, what are you doing? What I should have done 15 years ago, telling the truth. This will destroy your brother's reputation. The hospital could face lawsuits. The family name is built on a lie. I met his eyes. Kia Spencer deserves to be exonerated. Her daughter deserves to know her mother wasn't a murderer, even if that daughter tried to murder you, especially then. I stood, because maybe if we'd told the truth 15 years ago, that little girl wouldn't have grown up planning revenge. Maybe her mother would still be alive. Mitchell studied me for a long moment. She nodded and opened the door to the interrogation room. Through the one-way glass, I could see Natalie. She looked small, defeated, mascara smeared. Ready, Mitchell Assand? I took a deep breath. I'm preparing to confront the woman who tried to harm me. The door opened. Our eyes met. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The first time I'd met her, I thought she had kind eyes. Oliver had brought her to Sunday dinner, nervous and proud. She'd smiled at me across the table, and I'd thought my son chose well. Now those same eyes held only pain. Mitchell closed the door behind me, leaving us alone. The recording equipment blinked red in the corner. I guess you hate me, Natalie said finally. Her voice was flat empty. I sat down across from her. I don't know what I feel anymore. He's alive. No thanks to you. She flinched like I'd struck her. It wasn't supposed to be him. You know that, right? It was never supposed to be him. I know. I pulled a photograph from my jacket pocket, an old one printed from a hospital directory I'd found in Daniel's files. A woman in nurses, scrub, smiling at the camera. I slid it across the table. Do you remember her? Natalie's breath caught. Her hand trembled as she reached for the photo. Kalia Spencer, I said quietly. Your mother. Tears spilled down her cheeks. You know I found Daniel's files. I know he... Lead. Her head snapped up. You knew your brother killed that patient and blamed my mother. Not then. I found out last night. I met her eyes. I know Daniel made the surgical error. I know he falsified the reports. I know he destroyed your mother's career to save his own. Natalie stared at me, searching for deception, finding none. Then you know what you did to her? Her voice broke. He testified against her. He stood up at that tribunal and told them Daniel was meticulous, careful, and capable of mistakes. You vouched for him. Attitude called her. Natalie's hands clenched into fists. The night before she died, you called my mother and told her to confess to something she didn't do. The room tilted. Had you because she told me? Natalie stood abruptly, her chair scraping against concrete. I was 20 years old. I came home from work and found her sitting at the kitchen table crying. She'd just gotten off the phone with you. Do you know what she said to me? I couldn't speak, couldn't move. Natalie's voice shook with 15 years of rage. She said, even Mr. Hartley thinks I'm guilty. Even the brother of the man who did this thinks I'm responsible, she said. There was no point fighting anymore. No one would believe her. Natalie. The next morning, I found her in the bathtub. Tears streamed down her face. She'd slit her wrists. There was a note. It said, I'm sorry I failed you. I'm sorry I wasn't strong enough to fight. The room spun. My hands gripped the edge of the table. You want to know why? Natalie leaned forward, her voice rising. You called my mother the night before she died. You told her to confess to a crime she didn't commit. My face drained of all color. Natalie's voice dropped to a whisper. Her last words to me were, even Mr. Hartley thinks I'm guilty. There's no point anymore. The room was spinning. She was right. My hands were bloody, too. I couldn't speak. The truth was crushing me. Natalie continued, 15 years of rage pouring out. Do you know what it's like to find your mother dead at 20? To spend 15 years knowing she was innocent, but no one would listen? Her voice cracked. I had the original surgical notes. She'd hidden them before she died. I knew Daniel lied, but no one believed a dead nurse's daughter. I didn't know she was innocent. I managed. You didn't care. Natalie slammed her hand on the table. You believed blood over truth. Your brother said she did it, so she must have right. Never mind her 15-year perfect record. Never mind. She begged you to believe her. You're right. The words came out broken. I failed your mother. I chose loyalty over justice. I trusted Daniel without asking questions. Natalie stared at me, caught off guard. I'm not asking forgiveness, I continued. What I did was unforgivable, but I didn't know he'd lied. I thought he was telling the truth. That doesn't make her any less dead. No, it doesn't. Silence fell heavy with shared guilt. Why, Mary Oliver? I asked quietly. Was it all revenge? Natalie turned away, shoulders shaking. At first, yes. I tracked your family for years. Then I met Oliver at a charity event. It was kind. He talked about his mother dying of cancer. She laughed bitterly. I wasn't supposed to fall in love with him, but you did. I did. Fresh tears spilled, and I hated myself for it. I decided to make you pay. She faced me, expression raw. I researched for months, stole the KCL, planned everything, and when I made that soup, her voice broke. I cried the whole time. Part of me didn't want to do it. Part of me wanted to walk away, be Oliver's wife, and nothing else. But you couldn't. No, because every time I looked at you, I saw my mother's face, her note, her last words. Natalie's hands trembled. I thought you knew, Julian. I thought you'd helped Daniel cover it up deliberately. I thought you were evil. She paused, tears streaming. But you're just human, and that's worse. Why is that worse? Her voice dropped to a whisper. Because it means we both destroyed innocent people through ignorance, and there's no one left to hate but ourselves. The weight of her words settled over us like ash. We'd both been wrong. We'd both caused irreparable harm, and no amount of revenge. Cliff, undo it. Silence filled the room. We were both crying now. Detective Mitchell stepped inside. Mr. Hartley, we need to. She stopped reading the moment. I wiped my eyes and turned to Natalie. I can't bring your mother back, but I can tell the world the truth about Daniel and Kalopi. Natalie looked up, confused. What's I have the documents, the falsified reports, Daniel's original confession. I'm giving them to the authorities, too, the press, if necessary. You destroy your brother's reputation. It's built on your mother's corpse. It deserves to be destroyed. I met her eyes. Kalia Spencer will be exonerated publicly. Her name will be cleared. Mitchell stepped forward. Mr. Hartley, you understand what this means. The media, attention, the scrutiny, I understand. The world will know my brother was a fraud, and I helped him do it. I turned back to Natalie. But your mother deserves justice. Why? Her voice was barely audible. Why would you do that? Because it's the right thing to do. I should have done it 15 years ago. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. You wanted revenge? I said quietly. I'm offering justice. Those aren't the same thing. What's the difference? Revenge destroys. Justice liberates. Natalie stared at me for a long moment. Then in a whisper, I want my mother exonerated. Mitchell nodded. Mrs. Hartley, if you cooperate, fully testify about the poisoning, provide all evidence, District Attorney Rogers might consider a reduced sentence. As if summoned, the door opened. Michelle Rogers stepped in, flanked by Leonard Cooper. The DA was a formidable woman in her mid-40s, known for being tough but fair. Mrs. Hartley, Rogers set a folder on the table. I've reviewed the evidence. Attempted murder carries 20 years minimum. However, she glanced at me. Given the unique circumstances and Mr. Hartley's willingness to testify about his brother's fraud, I'm prepared to offer a deal. 12 years eligible for parole in 8 if you plead guilty and cooperate fully. Natalie's hands trembled. 12 years. It's more than fair considering you tried to commit murder, Roger said bluntly. What about Oliver? Natalie's voice cracked. Will he ever forgive me? I thought of my son in that hospital bed, asking if any of it had been real. I don't know, I said honestly. But you can start by telling the truth. All of it. No more lies. No more revenge. Just the truth. Natalie looked at the plea agreement, then at me, then at Mitchell. Finally, She nodded. Okay, I'll tell you everything. Rogers pulled out a recorder. Misha sat down with a notepad. Lena squeezed my shoulder. And there in that grey interrogation room, the whole terrible truth finally came into the light. The following weeks were a blur of depositions, media frenzy, and sleepless nights. By the time we stood in the courtroom for Natalie's arraignment, the story had exploded across every news channel. Today, the truth would become public record. The courtroom was packed. Journalists filled the back row's cameras waiting outside. Oliver sat beside me in the gallery, his face pale, but resolute. He'd been released from the hospital a week ago, still weak, but determined to be here. Natalie stood at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, her hands cuffed. She looked smaller, somehow diminished. Her eyes met briefly. She looked away. District Attorney Michelle Rogers began. Mrs. Hartley, please state for the record how you obtained the potassium chloride. Natalie's voice was steady. I used my old employee access card from Riverside Pharmacy. The card should have been deactivated when I left 6 years ago, but it still worked. I entered through the back entrance on October 3rd at 2:47 a.m. and took 4 vials of KCO from the controlled substances locker. And what was your intention? To cause cardiac arrest in Julian Hartley. Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Why? Rogers asked. Because I believed he'd helped his brother cover up medical malpractice that led to my mother's death 15 years ago. Natalie's voice cracked. I thought he'd knowingly protected a murderer. I thought he deserved to pay. Rogers nodded. But you've since learned otherwise. Yes, Julian didn't know his brother had lied. He was ignorant, not evil. But by then I'd already. She couldn't finish. Dr. Allen. Gregory took the stand next to the forensic toxicologist who'd analyzed Oliver's blood work. The concentration of potassium chloride in the soup was approximately 40 grams per liter. He testified, a lethal dose for an average adult. Mr. Oliver Hartley consumed roughly 300 ml, ingesting 12 g fatal within 15 to 20 minutes, under normal circumstances. But he survived. Rogers prompted only because he collapsed in a hospital surrounded by physicians. They administered calcium gluconate immediately, which stabilized his heart. Without that intervention, he would have died. Oliver's hand tightened on mine. Then Leonard took the stand presenting Daniel's documents. 2 surgical reports projected on screens for everyone to see. The original, with Daniel's admission of error. The falsified one blaming Callia Spencer. The courtroom erupted. The judge gave for order. This court recognizes that nurse Calliope Spencer was wrongfully accused. Her nursing license is hereby posthumously reinstated with full honors. Camera flashes exploded outside. Headlines were already forming. Nurse exonerated 15 years after suicide. Doctors fraught exposed in poisoning case. Family destroyed by decades of lies. I sat in the gallery, tears streaming down my face. Oliver squeezed my hand. Natalie stood in the defendant's box, watching justice for her mother, but knowing she'd pay the price. Rogers approached the bench. Your Honor, given Mrs. Hartley's full cooperation and the extenuating circumstances, the state recommends 12 years. The judge nodded. Sentencing will be scheduled for 2 weeks from today. We'd both lost so much, but at least the truth was, finally, free. The courtroom was quieter on sentencing day. The media circus had moved on. Only those who truly cared remained. Natalie stood before the judge in her orange jumpsuit, hands scuffed. Oliver sat beside me, still pale but stronger than 2 weeks ago. His wedding ring was gone. I'd noticed it the day he left the hospital. The judge reviewed the file. Before I pass sentence, I'll hear victim impact statements. Oliver rose slowly, gripping the gallery rail for support. He approached the podium. Natalie was my wife. His voice was steady but strained. Learning it was all a lie destroyed me. But I've also learned about Callia Spencer. I understand the pain, the need for someone to pay. He paused. What Natty did is unforgivable. But she's not a monster. She's just broken. I don't forgive her, but I understand. He returned to his seat. The judge nodded, then looked at me. Monsieur Hartley. I stirred my legs unsteady, walked to the podium. I'm here speaking for the memory of Calliope Spencer, I began. A woman I never knew but helped destroy. 15 years ago, I testified against her. I called her and pressured her to confess to something she didn't do. 2 days later, she was dead. My voice cracked. I believed my brother over a stranger. I chose blood over truth. I looked at Natalie. She had tried to destroy me in return. That's justice in its rawest form. I don't ask this court for leniency on my behalf. I ask you to remember that this tragedy started with my brother's lie and my complicity. I sat down. The courtroom was silent. The judge turned to Natalie. Does the defendant wish to make a statement? Natalie stood, her voice barely audible. I'm not sorry for wanting justice. My mother deserved that. But I'm sorry for deceiving the good man and nearly killing him. She looked at Oliver, tears streaming. You asked if any of it was real. I don't know anymore. I got lost in my own lies. The woman who married you and the woman who made that soup. I don't know which one was me. Oliver's jaw tightened, but he didn't look away. Natalie turned to me. Thank you for giving my mother her name back. It's more than I deserved. The judge spoke. Natalie Spencer Hartley, you were sentenced to 12 years in state prison, eligible for parole after 8 years. You will receive credit for time served. The gavel fell. 2 officers stepped forward. Natalie's hands were secured behind her back as they led her toward the side door. She turned one last time. Her eyes found Oliver's. She mouthed, I'm sorry. Oliver nodded once, barely perceptible, and with that, she disappeared behind steel doors. I felt no satisfaction, no closure, only exhaustion. Oliver leaned against me, and I wrapped my arm around my son. We'd survived barely, but survival wasn't the same as healing. That would take much longer. 6 months later, autumn returned. Oliver came for Sunday dinner, a new tradition we'd started. He helped me set the table, moving with the careful deliberation of someone still learning to trust his body again. The kitchen where Natalie had made that soup no longer felt haunted. Carmen had scrubbed every surface, reorganized every cabinet. The thermos was gone, donated, along with most of Anne's old things. How's physical therapy? I asked, handing him. Plate's good. Kidney functions at 85%. Darko says that's as good as it'll get. He shrugged. Would have been worse. Much worse. We worked in comfortable silence. Oliver had lost weight. He hadn't needed to lose. And there were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. But he was here, alive. That was enough. Divorce finalized yesterday, he said quietly. I paused. How do you feel? Relieved. Sad. Angry. Everything. He set down the silverware. Is that normal? I think so. Carmen emerged from the kitchen carrying a steaming pot of pasta. Deliberately, not soup. We'd avoided soup for 6 months now in unspoken agreement. We sat, ate. The normally of it felt like a small miracle. I got a letter from her, Oliver said suddenly. From prison. I set down my fork. Did you read it? Yes, she's different in writing. More honest. Maybe. She talks about therapy. About finally dealing with her mother's death properly. She said she's sorry again. He pushed food around his plate. She asks about me, if I'm okay. Did you write back? No, I can't. Maybe never. He met my eyes, but I kept the letters. Why? Because they're true. Painful truth is still better than beautiful lies. I reached across the table and squeezed his hand. When did you get so wise? He laughed, a real laugh. The first in months, since I almost died eating soup. The absurdity of it hit us both at once, and we laughed together. Dark humor maybe, but laughter nonetheless. Carmen smiled from the kitchen doorway, relief washing over her face. Dad, Oliver said, when we'd caught her breath. I've been thinking about starting over. Dr. Turner asked me to dinner. Rebecca, I smiled. Says a good woman. She saved your life. You think it's too soon? I considered. Rebecca Turner had checked on Oliver weekly since his discharge. Professional at first, then genuinely concerned. I'd seen how Oliver's face softened when he talked about her. I think healing doesn't have a timeline, I said. If it feels right, trust that she knows everything about Natalie, the poisoning, all of it, and she still wants to. He shook his head, wonder in his voice. That's because she sees who you are, not what happened to you. Oliver nodded slowly. I told her, yes, dinner next Friday. Good. Watching my son consider opening his heart again, I realized something surviving wasn't enough. We had to learn to live again. And maybe finally, we were. 1 year after the trial, on a sunny October morning, I stood in the courtyard of County General Hospital, where it all began. Today we would honor a woman who should never have been forgotten. The hospital had transformed a corner of the main courtyard into a memorial garden. New benches, flowering shrubs that would bloom each spring, and a bronze plaque mounted on a granite base. It was small, tasteful, permanent, more than Calliope Spencer had received in life. A crowd of about 50 people gathered, hospital administrators in suits, trying to look appropriately solemn. Nurses who'd worked with Calliope 15 years ago, some dabbing their eyes. Journalists, including Alison Burke, who'd covered the trial, ostensibly, and was now writing a book about medical malpractice. Detective Mitchell stood near the back, still keeping watch even though the case was closed. Leonard Cooper, beside me, my attorney, and now something closer to a friend. And Oliver standing at my side for support, his hands steady on my shoulder. Dr. Caroline Blake stepped forward first, a pharmacist in her mid-60s who'd been closest friend. She wore a hospital ID badge even though she'd retired 2 years ago, claimed she couldn't quite let go. Calliope Spencer was my friend. She began, her voice shaking but determined. We went through nursing school together. She was the smartest in our class, the most dedicated. She could start an IV on the most difficult patient, could calm a scared child with just her voice. She was good at what she did. Caroline paused, composing herself. 15 years ago, when she was accused, I knew something was wrong. Calliope was meticulous. She triple-checked medications. She wouldn't make that kind of error. Tears streamed down her weathered face. But I didn't fight hard enough for her. I was scared of losing my job, scared of going against the doctor, scared of making waves. So, I stayed silent. Her voice broke completely. I let my best friend die alone, believing the whole world thought she was a murderer. That guilt has eaten at me every single day. She looked directly at the memorial. I'm sorry, Callie. I should have been braver. You deserved better from all of us. She stepped back, and another nurse came forward with a bouquet of white lies. Calliope's favorite flower, apparently. The hospital's CEO, a polished man in his 50s named Richard Petton, spoke next. Today, County General Hospital corrects a grave injustice, he said, reading from prepared remarks, but managing to sound sincere. 15 years ago, we failed Nurse Spencer. We failed to properly investigate the circumstances of patient Carlson's death. We allowed procedural shortcuts that made it possible for one doctor to falsify records without adequate oversight. We permitted a culture where a physician's word was valued over a nurse's evidence. He looked out at the crowd. We have since implemented new protocols, mandatory secondary review of all adverse events, anonymous reporting systems, independent investigations. But these changes came too late for Calliope Spencer, and for that this institution bears responsibility. Today we begin to make amends. Then it was my turn. My hands trembled as I approached the small podium they'd set up. Oliver squeezed my shoulder once before letting go. I could feel dozens of eyes on me, curious, judgmental, sympathetic. My name is Julian Hartley, I began, my voice barely steady. 15 years ago, my brother, Dr. Daniel Hartley, made a surgical error during a routine procedure. His mistake killed a patient named Zuri Carlson, a 54-year-old woman with a family who loved her. I paused, forced myself to continue. Instead of owning his mistake, Daniel falsified medical records. He blamed Nurse Calliope Spencer for a medication error that never happened, and I believed him. The words tasted like ash. Daniel was my baby brother. I'd protected him our whole lives. When he was bullied in school, I fought for him. When he struggled in college, I tutored him. When he told me a nurse had made a fatal error and he tried to save the patient, I believed him without question. I looked down at my notes, the papers shaking in my hands. I testified on his behalf at the hospital tribunal. I told them Daniel was careful, precise, incapable of such negligence. My words carried weight. I'd worked with this hospital. New board members had credibility in this community. I used that credibility to destroy an innocent woman. Someone in the crowd shifted uncomfortably, and then I made it worse. I called Calliope Spencer at home. I told her that if she admitted to the error, the hospital would show leniency. I told her that fighting would ruin her career, her life. I told her to think of her daughter. My voice cracked. She told me she was innocent. She begged me to believe her, and I didn't. The garden was completely silent, except for birds singing, oblivious to human tragedy. I told her the evidence was clear. I told her the best thing she could do was take responsibility, and she said, I had to stop, breathe. She said, I see, and hung up. 2 days later, she was dead. Tears streamed down my face now, but I didn't wipe them away. I chose loyalty over truth, family over justice, comfort over courage. And an innocent woman died because I was too cowardly to ask the hard questions, to demand real evidence to believe her over my brother. I looked up at the crowd meeting there. Eyes. I can't bring Kalopi back. I can't give her daughter those 15 years of having a mother. I can't undo the damage Daniel and I caused. But I can stand here and tell the truth. Kalia Spencer was innocent. She was a devoted mother, a skilled nurse, and a good woman who deserved so much better than what this hospital, my brother, and I gave her. My voice dropped to barely a whisper. I'm sorry, Kaleb. I'm so deeply, truly sorry. I failed you in every way that mattered. I stepped back. The CEO moved forward and pulled the cloth from the memorial plaque. Bronze gleamed in the autumn sunlight in memory of Kalia Spencer. RN, 1971 to 2010. A dedicated nurse whose reputation was unjustly tarnished. Her devotion to patient care and professional excellence stands as a testament to the nursing profession. Truth delayed is not truth denied. Below in smaller letters, she deserved better. Camera flashes went off. People applauded softly. Several nurses placed flowers at the base of the memorial. I stood frozen, staring at her name cast in bronze. Permanent now, honored now, 15 years too late. Afterward, as the crowd dispersed, an older woman approached. She was perhaps 70 with silver hair and Kalip's same warm brown eyes. Mr. Hartley. Her voice was gentle. I'm Margaret Spencer, Callie's older sister. I couldn't speak, could only stare at her. I wanted to thank you, she said. Thank me. I stepped back, horrified. Mrs. Spencer, I'm the reason your sister. You're the reason her name was cleared. She took my hand in both of hers. For 15 years, our family has lived with the shame of what people thought she'd done. Her daughter grew up believing her mother was a murderer who couldn't face her guilt. That lie poisoned everything. Tears welled in her eyes. What you did today, standing up there, admitting your part, destroying your own family's reputation to tell the truth, that took more courage than staying silent. My sister can finally rest. Her name means something again. She pressed something into my hand. I thought you should have this. It was a photograph, aegis worn soft with age. Coley, maybe 30, sitting on a park bench. On her lap, a little girl of 5 or 6 with pigtails and a gaff to smile. Both of them laughing at something beyond the camera's frame, their faces lit with pure, uncomplicated joy. Natalie and her mother, before everything fell apart. This was taken at her birthday party. Margaret said softly. 6 months before Daniel's surgery, they were so happy. She touched the photo gently. Coley would want you to remember that once before, all the lies and tragedy, there was just love. Just a mother and daughter who adored each other. I stared at the image, my vision blurring. Natalie looked so young, so innocent. Kalap looked radiant, whole, alive, in a way I'd never seen in the professional photos from her personnel file. Keep it, Margaret said. Remember them this way, not as victim and avenger, but as they were, human, loving, real. She squeezed my hand once more and walked away, leaving me holding the photograph. As the October sun warmed the memorial garden, Oliver came to stand beside me. You okay, Dad? I looked at the photo, then at the bronze plaque, then at my son alive, healing, choosing to stand by me, despite everything. We were all innocent once, I said quietly, before the lies consumed us. Yeah, Oliver agreed. But we're telling the truth now. That has to count for something. Looking at that photograph, at the pure joy on both their faces, I realized he was right. We couldn't undo the past, but we could honor it with honesty. Maybe that was enough. 2 years after a bowl of soup nearly destroyed my family, I sat at my desk on a quiet Sunday evening, typing the final lines of a story that needed to be told. The manuscript was titled The Soup That Saved My Life, a memoir of truth and consequences. Rain pattered against the windows. Carmen hummed in the kitchen, preparing dinner for tomorrow. She still came 3 times a week, more out of loyalty than necessity. The house felt lived in again, warm in a way it hadn't been since Anne died. I'd repainted the kitchen last spring, replaced the old table where Natalie had sat that Sunday morning. Small changes that somehow made breathing easier. The doorbell rang. Oliver stood on the porch with Rebecca Turner, their hands intertwined. They'd been dating for over a year now, taking it slow, building something real on a foundation of honesty. Rebecca knew everything, every ugly detail, and chose to stay anyway. That, I'd learned, was what real love looked like. "We have news," Oliver said, grinning wider than I'd seen in years. "We're moving in together," Rebecca added, her eyes bright. "Found a place near the hospital. 2 bedrooms, good light, terrible plumbing." I pulled them both into a hug. "Welcome to the family, officially this time." Rebecca laughed. That easy, genuine laugh that had helped pull my son back from the edge. I promised not to poison anyone. The dark humor hung for a moment. Oliver tensed slightly, then relaxed. We all laughed. Genuine, healing laughter. Some wounds became scars you could joke about. Eventually, "When's the move?" I asked. "Next month. You'll help, right?" Oliver's tone was light, but his eyes held a question. "Are you okay with this? Wouldn't miss it?" I said, "I'm so proud of you." After they left, driving off into the rain with their heads close together, planning their future, I returned to my desk. Checked my voicemail. One new message from a number I recognized. The State Correctional Facility. "Hi Julian, it's Natalie." Her voice was different, softer, less guarded, with an accent she'd apparently picked up inside. Prison changed people in ways both terrible and necessary. "I got my GED last month. Started taking nursing classes through the prison program. Thought you'd want to know." I paused, the sound of other voices in the background. It makes me feel closer to my mom learning what she learned. Anatomy, physiology, patient care. I understand now why she loved it so much. Another pause, longer this time. "I know Oliver stopped writing 6 months ago. I understand. I don't blame him. But I wanted you to know I'm grateful for the truth, for clearing her name, for not hating me the way I hated you." Her voice cracked. "I'm still so sorry. Every day I wake up and remember what I did, what I almost did, that I'm trying to be better. The kind of person she would have been proud of. The kind of person Oliver thought he'd married." The message ended with a soft click. I saved it, added it to the folder on my computer. Natalie, 2024-2026, filled with letters and recordings. Documentation of a long, painful journey toward redemption. I'd never responded to most of them, but I read every word, bore witness to her transformation, or at least her attempt at one. On my mantel sat a row of photographs carefully arranged. Anne, smiling in her garden dirt on her knees, looking more alive than she had in the final months. Oliver in his white coat on medical school graduation day, young and hopeful. Dano, at his wedding years, before everything fell apart. I'd almost removed that one several times, but couldn't quite do it. He was still my brother, flawed and fatal as he'd been. And now newly added in a simple silver frame the photo Calliope's sister had given me. A young mother and her daughter, both beaming with uncomplicated joy. Natalie couldn't have been more than 5 gaptithede and giggling. Calliope looked radiant, proud, full of a future that would be stolen from her. Family was more complicated than blood, more painful, more redemptive. I returned to my desk, pulled up the final chapter of my memoir, read through it one last time, making small edits. 2 years ago, my daughter-in-law tried to kill me. She killed her own chance at happiness instead. I nearly killed her mother with words. My brother killed a patient and blamed an innocent woman. Through death and near death, we found truth. It didn't erase what was lost, but the lies were gone, too. Maybe that was redemption. I typed the final line. Truth is painful, but lies are poison. I'd rather live with painful truth than die from beautiful lies. I hit the period key. The end. Carmen appeared in the doorway with tea, never soup. Not anymore. We'd moved past that, though she still flinched sometimes when reaching for the pot. "Finished?" she asked, setting the cup beside my keyboard. "Finished?" She smiled. The kind of smile that held years of shared grief and survival. "Mrs. Zan would be proud. You told the truth, even when it hurt us, especially then." She squeezed my shoulder and left me in the warm lamplight. I sipped the tea chamomile with honey the way Anne used to make it. Outside, the rain softened to a whisper. Somewhere across town, Oliver and Rebecca were planning a future, choosing paint colors and arguing about furniture with the sweet mundanity of new love. In a prison 200 meters away, Natalie was studying for an exam, trying to honor a mother she'd lost too young. At County General Hospital, bronze plaque caught the morning sun each day, reminding everyone who passed of a woman who deserved to be remembered. We'd all been broken by lies. We were slowly being rebuilt by truth. I closed my laptop, backed up the file one last time, paranoid habit from years of engineering work, turned off the desk lamp, and sat in the peaceful darkness, listening to Carmen lock up and say goodnight, Phil car starting in the driveway, the house settling into silence. For the first time in years, perhaps the first time since Anne died, I felt at peace. Not happy exactly. Peace and happiness weren't the same thing. But the weight I'd carried for so long, the guilt and grief and what-ifs had somehow become bearable. I told the truth, paid the price for it, watched others pay their prices, too. That had to be enough. I sat there until the tea grew cold, then rose and walked through my quiet house, turning off lights, checking locks, performing the small rituals of ending a day. Tomorrow my publisher would receive the manuscript. Next month, I'd help Oliver move into his new life. Next year, maybe Natalie would earn her nursing certificate behind bars. Following in her mother's footsteps, in the only way left to her, we were all still here, still trying, still healing. That was something. Text. Epilogue. Calliope Spencer's nursing license was posthumously reinstated in 204. Natalie Spencer Hartley is serving her sentence eligible for parole in 2030. Dr. Oliver Hartley continues to practice at County General Hospital. Julian Hartley published his memoir in 2025. All proceeds benefit the Kalia Spencer Nursing Scholarship Fund. So that's my story. A grandpa's story that I wish I never had to tell, but one that needs to be heard. This is a true story about how lies can poison everything they touch. Looking back at that Sunday morning when Natalie brought me soup, I see now how easily trust can be weaponized, how quickly loyalty can become blindness. I chose my brother's word over a stranger's truth, and that choice destroyed lives. This grandpa's story isn't just mine, and it's a warning for anyone who's ever had to choose between family and justice. Don't be like me. Don't let blood blind you to truth. Don't let love silence your questions. When someone tells you they're innocent, really listen, investigate, demand evidence, question authority. Even when it's family, especially when it's family, God gave us discernment for a reason. He commands us to seek truth, not comfort. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. John 32. But freedom comes with a price. The truth cost her life. It cost Natalie 12 years. It cost Oliver his marriage, and nearly his life. Yet through God's grace, we found redemption, not a razor of our sins, but the courage to face them, to stand in that courtroom and say, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I will do better. This true story taught me that revenge and justice aren't the same. Natalie wanted revenge. I offered justice. One destroys, the other liberates. And only through God's mercy can any of us hope to be forgiven. Every grandpa's story carries a lesson. Mine is this: lies are poison, even well-intentioned ones. This true story is my testimony and my warning. If this story touched you, please leave a comment below. Have you ever faced a moment where loyalty conflicted with truth? Share your thoughts, subscribe to this channel, and pass this story to someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes the hardest truths are the ones we need most.